Friends, welcome and thank you for joining me on another Let's Talk with the Doc. I'm excited to be here tonight again, and I'm thankful that God has been good to us, that we are still able to be making it through the challenges that we face. I apologize for the late start, but here we are ready to go with another Let's Talk, and I'm excited tonight because I have with me round two, part two. Bishop Clyde Bailey is with us again, and they say if it's nice, you play twice, and one good term deserve another. So I have the bishop with me, coming joining me from down south where it's much warmer than where I am in New York, and we're gonna have a good conversation tonight, and I hope that we can touch some points that will be beneficial to you. So hang in there. It's a good time to eat your ship and tell your friends about it because we're going to be talking about how COVID is affecting our families, part of the conversation. So hang in there. When I come back, I'll be talking to Bishop Clyde Bailey. ORB Ministry presents Let's Talk with the Doc. Grace Without Borders podcast. A thought for you. Ask Pastor. And a whole lot more. You never know what's next or who will join the conversation. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me, Bishop Bailey. It's good to have you with me, and I hope that the day is going well with you and things went okay with your day. We're just trying to make some adjustment to my technique because sometimes these things are beautiful, but sometimes they have hang-ups. But here we are tonight, thankful again that we can meet to have another conversation, part two of our conversation. Now, welcome, Bishop Bailey.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back here with you, and I'm looking forward to an exciting
All right. Looking for the
conversation.
exciting conversation. I don't know. We're having a little bit of delay somewhere, but we hope that it will work itself into warming up and doing better. So, how has things been with you since we had our conversation? I know life goes on, and there's a lot that's happening. What has it been with you since we had our first conversation? What have you been so indulged in?
In quite a few things. For example, Christmas came around, and this last time Christmas is, and then we came over into the new year, and we're pressing ahead in terms of ministry, in terms of helping to build the kingdom. It's been an exciting time so far.
So I even forgot. I even forgot that it was prior to Christmas. It seemed like it was just the other day, and it seemed like it was just a couple of weeks ago. But yes, you're right. It was last year.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, it's last year, so I should have recognized. Oh, I haven't seen you since last year. So,
What can I say?
oh my goodness. I hope my sound is good. I'm still struggling a little bit. What like sound like a little feedback somewhere. I'm not sure, but I hope it will be good enough. So, what has church been like for you for the new year? I know New Year comes with new challenges, and what has it been like? Because I know where your passion is now. Your passion is in ministry. They say, okay, that's my baby right now. My baby is building a new ministry. What has it been like? You've just been in it now for a few months, right? Or how long since you've been in? And what has it been like? The challenges, when I say the challenges and the what's the next word I want to find here? The opportunities and stuff like that.
We started back in on the 14th of November. So this past Sunday was our 10th Sunday, and it was our 10th exciting Sunday. It's always interesting to just we make our plans, we prepare, we have things ready to go, and then you see people turn up. I have grown to appreciate the blessings of people coming through the door. You can always make plans and you can always expect that people will come, but when they actually turn up, it really is a blessing, and it's good to see people coming through our doors Sunday after Sunday. Very, very encouraging, and people have been blessed. We've been having a wonderful time, especially in this month of December, of January. What's also been encouraging is that we're having new people turn up every Sunday. And that's a great thing. That's a great feeling. It tells us that people within the church community are talking about it. They are sharing whatever it is they're experiencing with others, and we are so excited.
Wow, that must be. Yeah, I don't know what's going. Feedback is coming. Don't know what is happening here in my feedbacks. Something is feeding back. Let me see if tone. Okay, let's see if some. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure if anything is running around here that is creating a problem. All right, so for every preacher, every minister, every pastor, that's the most exciting thing, that you continue to see new faces. uh, the excitement continues. People are showing up. People are excited, and the pastor is motivated. And so this is always good news. There's always good news, right? When we see new things happening.
Yes, yes, yes. You know what? One of the exciting things about church, and people who are in the more established churches, they will probably take it for granted. But think about it. Somebody comes to church and they come up to you and say, "What can I do? Is there
Mm.
anything that I can do to help?" I mean, that just excites me because it speaks to enthusiasm, it speaks to willingness, it speaks to somebody enjoy being here. And sometimes I have to call on somebody to come and help me to be able to assign someone to an area to serve. But that has been one of the high points for me about church. Folks just being willing and offering their services to help.
Wow, that must be that must be something really exciting. I'm not sure my sound is not good, Bishop. I'm not sure if my sound is I'm trying to figure what my sound. Are you still hear me loud and clear?
You're loud and clear.
Okay, so let's see if that works better. I'm not sure. All right, we're struggling a little bit with that, but hopefully we'll get that figured out. All right, so again, I don't want to say I covet your position, but because you're fresh, I've been around for so for so long. I've been around for so long, so and I'm still excited about it. We for the past 3 weeks we haven't gone in house.
Oh,
For the past 3 weeks we have zoomed, and we
okay.
have tapped into our virtual connection because we're kind of a little bit aware of the invasion of the Omicron,
Yes.
you know um variant, the Omicron train of the virus, and we kind of get back up above where we were in New York, because New York is kind of up for people coming into traveling, so we kind of central landing place, and so wherever they're coming from, they tend to land in New York, and so we have to shake it off. So we eventually try to shake it off. So our numbers are going down, but we kind of, because we were able to do it we had the system set up and all what it needs to be able to go virtually comfortably. So we
Yes.
have done that for the past 3 weeks, but we're expecting to go back in house. Hopefully this weekend. We expect bad weather on the northeast. We don't know exactly where it's gonna hit, but we are preparing for it. But we're giving thanks, and so I'm excited because we're able to continue to have church. As I said, unlike some people when COVID hit, they were caught off guard. They had no infrastructure. They had nothing set up. So everybody was scrambling to see what can we do because there was no meeting that the meeting was against what was recommended by the CDC, etc., etc. So people were thrown off, and as a matter of fact, some people church have been closed down
Right.
because COVID wasn't just a week or two.
Right.
It lasted way, way longer than anybody anticipated. We are now touching into 2 years
Yeah.
since we've been struggling with COVID. But thanks be to God that we have been able to continue to have our virtual connection because, as I said, we had all these pieces in place. So on that side, I'm excited that we're able to continue to touch people and even touch people farther than we have ever been
Yes.
able to touch them. So COVID has helped us to do that. So,
Yes.
but I can see the excitement, and of course, you need that excitement in the beginning to keep you encouraged. They say, "Hey, guess what, man? This is really good. This is really good. Keep on going." So I'm excited for you for how things are shaping up, and it is always a good thing. It's always a good thing for pastors and leaders when they can find people who said, "What can I do?" Like when the Lord stopped Saul and tell him that he said, "Hey, I'm Christ who you crucify, you are persecuting." And then his response was, "What will you have me to do?" And he just told him what he had him to do. So when people come to you and said, "Pastor, Bishop, what can I do?" That is the best feeling a pastor can have.
Absolutely. 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 Can I just say something about COVID and the church?
We're, we're
God
gonna we're definitely gonna get to that COVID and the church because I know that's a big, big issue. But go ahead.
God knew a long time ago that COVID was going to come.
Hmm.
And God knew, and look at what God allowed. The technology to have got to a place where not only is it efficient, but it has been widespread. So everybody has access to one aspect of the technology in one way or the other. We're coming from another church where they were prepared. In fact, they were doing online streaming
Hmm.
long before COVID. And so when COVID came around full time, so here we are as a startup church, and we are thrusted in the middle of this efficient and proficient technology, and it is exciting because you have people. There are two groups of people. There are those people who are longing for church, for the world to return to normal, especially the church, and it might never return to normal. But there's another group of persons who they don't talk about normal. They are adjusting. They are adjusting and they're moving right along. And so I think that is really exciting. And more churches are beginning to realize, listen, don't sit around and wait for normal to return. Right? Make good use of what you have and move forward, because the gospel still has to go forth. People still need to be one for the kingdom, and we can't blame COVID forever and ever. We have to find a way to move forward.
I I totally I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you that we can't blame COVID. You know what? I don't want to blame COVID. I want to also credit COVID. I because there's good that came out of COVID.
Yes.
And I agree with you as you said. I was telling another minister yesterday that I this morning actually I do not see church going back fully to what church used to be, just by us coming together and being in this wonderful big gathering all by ourselves. I think we have opened the doors. Our COVID has opened the doors in so many different directions that there is no way that we can close those doors that COVID that caused us to tap into. So with that said, I don't see church going back to just what church used to be, even when we have come back together in the same numbers like we used to. Church can never be the same, because that means we would have ignored others that the Lord has allowed us to touch, and we cannot afford to ignore those that we have reached near and far. So with that said, I like the thought you said God has given us the advanced technology and made it so usable and user friendly
Yes.
that most of us can tap
Yes.
into it easily.
Yes. Let me say something. I think that God is helping us. I think it's more than helping us. He's opening our eyes to see a fresh on the world. For nearly 2,000 years, the church translated that to mean go physically, geographically, going to all the world. And that's fine. And the church has made some tremendous advances. But if you will remember in the 90s, the church had got to a place where they talked about a section of the world that we can't break into because the doors were closed. And God said, no, the doors aren't closed. There's technology. There's technology. You might not be able to go into these places physically, but you can reach them. And here comes the cell phone, right? And here comes all these modern features of audiovisual technology. Here's what I find very interesting. 5, 10 years ago, there were some churches that were ahead of their time and started um, ministering to people on about
Right.
for some of these churches where they had an online pastor. What do you mean by an online pastor? Well, in the last 2 years, since
Hmm.
2020, online pastors have been cropping up like crazy all over the place because now God has opened our eyes that, hey, listen, you can stay right where you are and go into all the world. You have people from all over the world who are tuning into your online broadcast. So here's what's the challenge to us now, which is what makes it exciting. We have to master the technology because the online community, they have thousands of options on a Sunday morning. And so if your church is not broadcasting efficiently and it's not communicating clearly, they will just switch to another church. But they exist. They exist. And we have to be mindful of that and reach those people in the virtual space. So I'm telling you, it's exciting.
I like what you said here, and I'm still struggling with this. I like what you said. I'm gonna give a shout out to Dr. Ming, who joined, who's saying hi, hi to you somewhere there. Um, but
Hey, Dr. Ming.
but I must agree with you, because the mentality, and I want to go back to the mentality, the church mentality, the preacher's mentality. We have had this mentality that anything that had to do with technology was un Christian, and not very sanctified, and were demonic and devilish. So I like that the fact that you said, what we people used to say, we have online pastors, and people were ridiculed and looked down on for talking about having online pastors. But it comes to the time when a lot of us now would like to be online pastors, right? And a lot of us have become online pastors, and we are cherishing online pastoring. So because the reach is boundless.
Yes,
The
yes,
reach is boundless. and
yes.
and and what some of us have to do, and I have been tapping into, how do I utilize that to have virtual connection to people everywhere in the world and how to make them become intimately connected
Yes.
with what you do as church so that
Yes.
they don't just watch your screen
Yes.
and you don't know that they are there,
Right.
but they're watching your screen and you can see them and you know they're there and you can actually communicate with them. You can see their smiles and you can see them raise their hands and praise
Yes.
the Lord. So when you do
Yes.
that, you can create an intimate connection that people feel like they become part of something and not just watch it on the screen. So we have set up a virtual connection for our church, and somebody can go to our church website at gnlc.church. You can find a virtual connection link and form there that you can actually fill that form out. You can actually fill that form out so you can become a legitimate member of our church no matter where you are, because then we will follow up on that and go through a process. And now we're figuring out, how to. I dedicate a baby in Georgia last year. From New York, did a baby dedication.
I performed a wedding. I performed a wedding online.
Exactly. That's
The bride and the
literally
groom were
all.
in one city, and I was in another city, and they had a beautiful wedding.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. The only thing that I'm contemplating now is figuring out how I will be able to do a baptism. I'm still working on that, the baptism aspect of it, because I'll get there. I have something in my mind that I'm working on. How are we gonna do that? Because all you want is a public declaration, a public demonstration that somebody
Yes.
has been
Yes.
immersed in water. We will
Yes.
figure that out.
Listen. I'm beginning to understand something. The man who said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The man who created this world out of nothing. He was creative back then, and he hasn't changed. He's still creative, and he is saying to us, the 21st century church, be creative.
Be
Be
creative.
creative. And so you can stay right there in New York, and you have some members of your church who join you from a country in Asia. They've never set foot in New York,
Never, never, never. And that's the
but they
power.
call the church in New York their church. In the
Amen.
morning, they tune in. Whatever time it is there in Thailand or Singapore, whatever, they tune in. And they call you their pastor, and they're listening for the word. And they raise their hands and they get saved and they give their hearts to the Lord. And so now we here on this side of the camera, we have to find ways to disciple them. You see, there was a time when we thought that live streaming online ministry was for prisoners and people in nursing homes and all this kind of no. The wide world outside there is waiting.
I am 100% in agreement with you. 100% agreeing with you with that, because and God help us that we figure how to use that, and we have to also educate our people that they learn now to accept people from afar, that they are really intimately connected. I am excited about it. I am so excited about it, and I'm glad that you are envisioning that and you're seeing what I'm seeing, the opportunities that we have been blessed with and how we can reach the world around us. I can't wait to have some people don't look like me who are members of our church who look far from me. So,
Yes, yes, yes.
some people from the Philippines, some people in Australia. I'm looking for that. Oh wow, sister Ming, maybe she would like to. She wish she could talk to us. Maybe we could send her the link. If you can send her the link. You have her connection.
I do. I'll probably try and connect her as we
If
go
you can
along.
send her the link, we maybe
Yes.
could get her connected to the conversation, because there's a lot that we want to talk about. Dr. Ming, I'm excited. If you're prepared to come on live, we could actually bring you into the restream room. This is not the Zoom room, but we have a restream room that we could actually welcome you in. So send her the restream link, and then let's see if she can tap into it. Um, all
Look,
you have
but
to do.
in the meantime, she has raised a very interesting question. has the pandemic introduced a challenge for long-serving Christians? By this I mean, is there a falling away so that many have become spiritually lethargic and are almost in a state of backsliding? Great question. Great question. Because here we are, you and I, we're excited about church online, the virtual congregation. We can't afford to neglect the real live congregation that we've had over the years. And
Mm-hmm.
so while we are tapping into the technology and we're throwing resources at reaching the virtual community, we also have to cater to those who are here. And those who are here are in two categories. Those who are here, your regular congregation, some of them are coming to church.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Great, we're happy. But there's some of them who are still how in their mind church is still the big super spreader. They go to the groceries, they go to their jobs, they do all kinds of things Monday to Saturday, but they're afraid to come to church. And I think Dr. Ming is asking us to consider those. So while we might have our online pastor and our online pastoral staff and so forth, we have to beef up the service that we offer to those who are still here with us, because we can't take it for granted that because they are here, then they are going to come to church and so forth. What if they don't come to church because they are still afraid?
Yeah,
We still have to cater to them.
I'm with you. And we're not in the position of either or. We're not in the position of either or. We're in the position of both,
Absolutely.
because both are important. As a matter of fact, those in the house are so important because they help to create the energy. They help to create the energy that transcends from your local to the broader world. And so they're absolutely important. They're the immediate ones you can touch and feel. So you cannot just cater to the outer world unless you do not have a local church. If you're just an online minister, then that's a different story. But if you do have a local church, there is no way you can ignore the importance of that local church.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We do not have time to ignore
Right.
the sheep that we have. I mean, you remember the story in Luke 15, right? The man lost one sheep,
Hmm.
but he made sure that the 99 that he was leaving behind, that they did not feel abandoned. So he closed the gate. He made sure that they're comfortable, right? There was enough light for them so that they don't feel scared. And he probably made sure he put some food in their trough. So while he's gone, he doesn't know how long he's going to be gone for, that they are comfortable. And he went out. So physically, he is out going after that one sheep. But the 99 who are there behind, they probably don't miss him because they don't feel abandoned. And that's the mindset. That's the mindset that as church we have to take. Otherwise, we are going to lose people, and not just lose them to another church, but lose them spiritually, because if they are not fed, they're going to become spiritually malnourished. They become spiritually malnourished, they're backslid.
Hmm. I absolutely agree with you on that. I must apologize. I'm not sure if the same sound going out to the audience like it's popping in my ears sometime. I hope it is not, but if it is, we apologize for this little sip. But I think we're having a healthy, good discussion, and we're gonna come up to talk about, the impact of COVID on the family. But we're just kind of reflecting in the early, so it's a good time for you to hit your share button. Tell somebody I have Dr. Clyde Bailey on with me. Bishop Bailey is here with me. He's a family therapist, and we have not tapped into the natural, physical, mental, social, psychological part of it. We're just looking at the spiritual aspect and how COVID has impacted the church on the negative, and how it also impacted the church on the positive, because in everything there is good and bad, and we want to blend both so we can have the best of both worlds. All right, so a little bit more on that, Bishop, on the importance of that, not in any way ignoring, but we also have to change the mentality. As you said, there are some people who go everywhere, and it seems like it's a worldwide thing, because everybody that I've spoken to are here speak. They're saying the same thing. People go everywhere else except come to church. The only place that is not safe right now is church for some people.
Right.
It's safe to ride the train, safe to ride the bus, safe to fly on the plane, safe to go to the supermarket. Some might even go to a ball game. I don't know, but
Yes. Yes.
but
Yes.
when it comes to church, there's a nice excuse to stay and watch.
Yes.
And here is the truth: you want them to come, and I think it was a blessing to us to have the technology, but it almost appears to be a curse, and in some sense, for the people who are normally coming into the house, because you have this reach and they can just stay home, tap into it. The other thing that people like to do is to come onto the Zoom, but they're not zooming. They just kind of they just log in, but their cameras and their microphones are turned off, and they just watch what's happening, and you don't see them. So
Right.
so they connect with you to certain level, but they stay keep doing what they are doing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
sometimes you think that, man, if we didn't have this Zoom thing, if we didn't have this Facebook and this YouTube thing, they would be in the house. But chances are, if you didn't have it, you would lose them totally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I say the challenge to us is to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
To be creative. In the business world, they talk about think tank, and they bring people together. Sometimes it seems some of the people seem unrelated, but business enterprises, for example, if they really want to fine tune their marketing skills, they will bring some guy off the street. They will bring some weirdo. They bring different people together and say, okay, let us brainstorm. Let's hear what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. And out of that will emerge who have all the MBAs in the world, would never have thought of that, but they made use of the opportunity of brainstorming. Hey, we can brainstorm in church. And let me tell you something. There are some of the smartest people in church who we don't know until we tap into them.
I
We,
couldn't agree.
we think that all the people who are prominent and who are active and so forth, that they have all the wisdom. There are some wise people sitting down Sunday, and they sing and they listen and they go home. But if you get to know them, you'll realize that they are smart and they are willing to
Yes, sir.
serve, right? And so we have to be always alert and listening out and looking out for opportunities to do better. So you talk about some of the people who are behind the camera, and they turn the computer on, whatever it is they turn on, and they go about their business, watch or whatever it is. Well, can we find creative ways to persuade them to sit down, to encourage them to sit down and stay with us for the 90 minutes or 2 hours, as the case is, as if you were in church? There are ways to do that. And so we can't close the door to all of that. Again, I say we have to be so alert, because the harvest field is there, but also there are the people who we have to continue disciple.
We have to, and I like that word disciple is an important word. I was saying to some of my congregants last week, just in our virtual service, that I can't wait. I can't wait for the day to come when most of us see that we get ready and just come to church, even though you're at home, but you still get ready and come to church so you can open up your cameras so that we can see each other, because just like iron sharpened iron, so that the countenance of one brighten another. So everyone who's able to see the other brother and the sister gives a better feeling, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of family, and we can see what you look like, your expression on your face help us, your hands of worship and your expression. We can see, even though your mics are muted, but we can see that you're saying praise the Lord and glory. That helps to spread energy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, I see something unfolding here, which is a great opportunity. We talk about the online pastor, but the online pastor needs an online team, and here's where the team can come in. A way to hold people, and I don't know what it's like in your church, but a way to hold the online viewer is to engage, interact with them. And so as soon as I see Orville Beckford logs on,
You're gonna say, "Hi, how are you? Good to see you today."
somebody on my online team should be able to say good morning. They know I'm on, right? And so forth. And you stick with Orville.
Yeah,
Did you hear the song which the praise team just sing? I thought it was great. And Orville sooner or later is bound to respond. He might not turn his camera on, but I hold him there. I engage him, and before long, Orville would have sat down with me for 90 minutes and paid attention to the service. It can be done. It can be done.
I I totally agree, and that's the direction that that's the direction that that my mind is, that we will have somebody who monitors, somebody who sits there with
Yes.
with
Yes.
earphones like me, that
Yes.
can actually hear if somebody says something, and they can use the keyboard to respond to that. They can have the chat and responding. So yeah, I mean, innovation, creativity, use what you have
Yes, sir.
is how we're going to build kingdom. We're going to build
Yes,
the
sir.
kingdom, and as you said in the beginning, reaching the world, taking the
Yes.
gospel to the world. Almost everybody have cell phone these days, or
Yes.
somewhere. It's not like decades ago when there was like only landline phones. There are cell phones everywhere these times, and people are using them. And so we have to use them for good. I went to do some document signing earlier this evening, and I sat with a Jewish couple to sign some documents, and they know that I had to try to get back to do my live stream, and I said, oh, it's going to be on Facebook. And they said, oh, Facebook, we don't use Facebook because it is like it's the art of evil and stuff. Like I said, I said in everything there is evil and there is good, in everything. So I am not going to let Facebook be only evil. I am
No.
going to bring some good into it. So
Yes.
there's a mix. So
Yes.
I'm going to utilize it and bring something good into it, so that I can have an impact, and I can reach somebody who I might not have otherwise been able to reach.
Let me brag about my wife. So she has and she's more advanced as far as handling the technology than I am. And so correspondingly to her online Bible study is that she has a page, a Facebook page, right? And she posts things there from time to time.
Mhm.
And if you want to be okay, the procedure, that's separate and apart. But here's something exciting. Sitting down before her on any given day of their Bible study are two groups of women. There's one group of women who are on Zoom, and there's another group of women, a larger group, who are on Facebook.
Right.
But here's a third group. When the program is done, when their Bible study is done, it's recorded and it's put up on Facebook for anybody to go and visit it. And can I tell you, she has people from all distant places in the world who they come and watch the recorded version, and they're reaching out to her, they're contacting her by email. I mean, one woman recently made a prayer request asking her to pray for her. And this woman is in a country that my wife has never been to and might never ever go to. But already she's making contact with people, in the virtual world. So the possibilities are endless, and God is just watching to see how much we make use of those opportunities.
And that's the power of technology, and I'm excited about it. And as you said, uh, for time differences, some people are not able to join you live. But then when it's recorded in there, they can always come back in
Yes.
their convenient time and receive what you have poured out there. So I am with you 100%. I am all in. I am all in on technology. All right. Okay. I'm talking to Bishop Dr. Clyde Bailey, man who is pastoring now in the new, what's your name, Richard, again? Faith.
Faith Place Church,
Faith
and we're
Place,
located in Miramar, Florida.
located in Faith Place
Faith Place
Church
Church, yes.
in Myanmar.
Miramar.
Miramar.
Miramar, Miramar is one of the larger cities in Broward County in Florida.
Okay, so if you're from that area, I'm sure you'll know what that is. You can look for them
Right.
online, and you can look for us too. You know, if you want to look for online churches, you can check us out at Grace New Life Center, GNLC. That church we are there to. We are, the virtual connection is where we are today using it. Okay, so tell me, Bishop, although you kind of just got into ministry, I'm now gone almost 2 years of living through the COVID impact on our local church. And let me just say, sadly, 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 as I speak, we have what, to my knowledge, we have just lost the very first person to COVID just a week ago.
I'm sorry to hear.
A week ago, yeah, and somebody that's very precious, very dear, to our organization and family, and we've just lost the first person. But for 2 years, there's so many people who have. One of my friends, when COVID just broke out, the pastor and I, we were in chaplaincy residency together, and he had lost, up to that point, he had lost 12 of his members, and he was telling me that those were prime members, members in leadership position, members. I think he had lost his assistant administrator, I think. So he had lost a lot. One of my bishop friends, his organization, they had lost about 45 ministers. 45
Wow.
ministers in the early
Wow.
part, because when the COVID broke, it broke in their convention series, when they were doing their conventions, their national convention, or the general convention, and COVID broke them. They lost their second in line in,
Wow.
in the overseership, the general overseer.
Wow.
That's the second in line.
Wow.
So they have been severely impacted by COVID, and because at that point, nobody knew what COVID was. Nobody knew
Right.
how to deal with it, how to prepare, how to prevent it, how to
Right.
protect ourselves. It was just like in the heat of it breaking, and catching like everybody off guard, like a freak wildfire just break out, and nobody saw it coming, and so they have lost a
Right.
lot of their, right? So you came in not too long ago. We understood it. We know some of what to do. Vaccination was already out and stuff like that. How would you say that you have seen COVID impact your church, if not your church that you know?
That's a great question. Um, I think in answering that question, one has to recognize the power of media.
Hmm.
And within media, there's diversity. So the people who are in your congregation, the 200 members or the 2,000 or the 20,000 member congregation that you have, they you have their attention for 90 minutes, 2 hours on a Sunday. But for the rest of the week, while they are there in the real world, they are tapping into media, and they have one source of media which is saying one thing, and the other source of media which is saying the other thing, and then there's a third source. There is the word of mouth.
Mm.
And so our people, all of these streams of information are coming to them. And we have to learn to keep up with it as well. We can't be hearing what they are hearing 2 weeks after they heard it. We have to be in tune with what is going on in media, what is going on in social media, what is going on word of mouth. So that we can deal with people based on the knowledge that they are acquiring. And so what we there, the sad thing about COVID is that the media might announce to you that 17 people died, 20 people died today, but those are 20 real life people. Those
Hmm.
are 20 people from 20 families. Those are people who were out there making a contribution to society and so forth. And they are gone. They are not nameless. They are not faceless. And here's something that I really feel strongly about. We can't join the people who sit down on their couches and lament about the numbers that we see on our TV screen. What an opportunity. I this anyone who knows me well is going to find this strange. But I've grown to appreciate funerals because listen, not only are church people dying, but people on the outside who've never set foot in church, they are dying as well. And when somebody who
Mhm.
is related to somebody who has a death in the family and they want a pastor, what a glorious opportunity to touch families in the community who don't come to church, right?
Mhm.
And not just wait for the funeral is at 10 o'clock. Don't just turn up at 10 minutes to 10 to do the funeral and then you go home. No, the minute you're here, you get in contact with the family. If you can't visit them, be on the phone with them, FaceTime them, set up a Zoom thing with them, and so forth, so that they know that the church that is represented by Pastor Beckford, that the church cares. So by the time you turn up on Saturday for the funeral or whichever day it is, they feel connected to you. Guess what? Out of that, you will pick up some people who will come to church
And I
because this pastor cares.
and I agree with you because that and that's a very touchable moment. That's a touchable moment when people are vulnerable, people are hurting, people are confused, people are helpless, people are desperate, and sometimes in their family circle or in the circumstance, they don't really run into somebody that they can say really cares and show compassion and has and is not grieving or a shoulder that is not grieving in the same way, but a shoulder that is available that for them to lean on. Almost anybody will listen to you in that time. Just to know that you care of their that they're having this pain and this grief, and you can they might not be able to digest what you're saying to them. And as a matter of fact, you don't need to preach to them. And in those times, you didn't even tell them about Jesus. Just let them know who you are and let them know that you are aware of their pain and you're there as their support. It's not the time to present something, but it's a time to show that you care and to show compassion. And
Yes,
when their grieving times
yes.
subside, they'll remember that.
Listen, in John 12:11, we read the dramatic story about Lazarus.
Hmm. Yeah.
And everyone knows it's in verse 35. On this side of
Right.
history, we can um, give all kinds of explanation about why Jesus wept. But for the people who were on the ground that day, when they saw Jesus weeping, you know what struck them? He really loved Lazarus.
He
He
really loved.
really has compassion. Look at Jesus. Jesus, the miracle worker. He is weeping. My goodness. And they go and they talk about it. That's what is going to be spreading on their social media. Yes, of course, we're going to talk about Lazarus raised from the
Yeah.
dead, right? But I was there when I saw Jesus
Listen,
weeping and it
listen.
touched me.
Did you see Jesus crying over Lazarus?
Right, right. It touched me. It touched me. Right. So the next time Jesus is in town, he's going to get some new followers because
Yeah.
this Jesus guy has compassion.
He's actually human. He's actually
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
Yes,
And people want to know that you're human. And,
yes.
and my friends, we're talking about the impact of COVID on not only the church but on the family in general. And we're gonna get to some stats because I don't know if the bishop did draw up any, but I did grab a couple, just grab something I could actually glean from, so we can reflect on. Um, in terms of from the outside of the media aspect, Bishop, what have you seen on your immediate territory or contact from a professional standpoint and from a pastoral standpoint. What's the impact that you have seen up close and personal on the family itself as a result of the of COVID? Whether there is just people sick with uncertainty, people have died, people children can't go to school, um, parents lose their job, and you have to do homeschool. I mean, across the board, across the board. Maybe take a look at them one by one. And what have you seen and heard? And then we'll talk about what can we do.
Wow. So you're setting it up for a convention.
You know, let me pause and let you take it just one at a time. First of all, what have you seen from your congregation? You maybe have a congregation of younger people, but the impact of the COVID. What have you seen personally in terms of the COVID effect? Maybe the effect of it on families.
So rather than give you numbers, let's recreate. The United States started locking down March 2020. Okay, a mother of 3 children. She's a working mother. Let's make it even more dramatic. She's a single parent. She has, over the years, she has mastered the art of dropping off her children. She uses her lunchtime to pick them up, take them back home, whatever it is, and so forth. But it's working beautifully for her. So the week before the country is locked down, she is being told that, listen, come next week, you can't send your children to school. What? Okay, there is no after school facility that is open. All the options are closed. This working mother, single parent, now has to find a way how to get her children to stay out of trouble, stay out of harm's way, and still learn based on what the school is offering them. That is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And she can't take off too much time from work to go take care of her 3 children. Very, very challenging. And those are the untold stories that we don't hear about, but that you think about what that means. Okay, so she manages to get them with their devices, and she coaches them all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Make sure when I go through the door and you lock the door and you all sit down in front of your computer. Of course, they hear what you say, but as soon as mom, right, and stuff. Chaos in the family, right? Meanwhile, she's at work, and every now and then she call in, how are you doing? Oh, fine. And so, and the kids, they suffer. And by the time we realize it, so much damage is done. So now that the kids have gone back to school, educators are finding out that very little learning took place. Mm-hmm. The online assignments came in, the online projects came in, and so forth, but very little learning took place. And it breaks my heart, because now what it means is, therefore, is that there's a whole generation of kids who have lost 1 year of their education development. And now we're going to have to find ways. Luckily, we still have an opportunity to correct some of those damage that has gone on. But that's one area that concerns me, the effect that it has had on children. And you've heard of kids where they grow depressed. I never knew, and I'm sure some parents didn't know either. During this pandemic, during this lockdown, that's when you hear kids saying they miss school.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you think they miss they miss their friends.
Their friends and their freedom.
Yes. And we take it for granted. We never realize how important that aspect of school is for them to be able to get up, go on the school bus and have fun and go to school and they run around with their friends and so forth. Yes, the education is important, but the socialization is also very key. And our kids have suffered. And we have to find creative ways and means to rescue them from the effect of that. We've heard of cases where some kids they got so depressed being out of school, away from their friends, that some of them have committed suicide.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh yeah. That's the sad. That's the sad, sad, sad part. Well, one of the sad parts. And as you said, in the very early stage. As a matter of fact, and I say this and I'm saying it again. Let's start with the doc. Actually, was birthed as a result of COVID. It was birthed as a result of COVID because once I finished my residency, and I've seen death up close and personal when COVID broke. I was working in the hospital then, so I've seen death like um, I've seen it everywhere. You could touch it everywhere. And so I remember one of the time that there were a number of people who died in the hospital whose body weren't claimed. Some of them maybe were homeless, or some families didn't want to shoulder the responsibility of finding a burial, so nobody showed up for them, or they were scared, or they were dead themselves. One of the most painful thing for me was um when 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 we were asked to do a funeral service for those who they were about to take and cremate them, because nobody claimed their body, and they were there just stockpile in the mortuary. So um, I thought it would have been maybe 4 or 5 people and something like that. And then when I asked the guy who was in charge of the place, he said there were 40 plus people who did not have anybody claiming them. So we had to just do like this one little service, and to get them a little bit of respect that they went to earn. Um, and so I had an early let's talk with the doc, and I was talking to doctors and teachers and nurses and stuff like that to find out how it was affecting them in the classroom and their jobs, etc. And one of my teachers, in a minister of my local church, told me just what you said before, that some of these kids just turn their computers on, and their cameras weren't on, but they weren't paying attention to anything. They were gone to do something. And as you said, the major loss of their educational development, 1 year going into 2 years now for some, and year and a half for some. And another thing that I found out, Bishop, is that some children, you talk about the single mother having to work this job and had to take care of the kids, or have to find somewhere. School was a place that they go. So a job was kind of in between. The kids get off, we work, we get them back in, or somebody pick them up, and they, when we come back in. But another aspect of that, it was school was a place where the kids get their meals. So their breakfast for some of them, and their lunch, and that's how their days went. And so when they weren't going to school, that was absent from their lives, and so they're home now starving. And my wife made mention that she saw a report on TV of a family, and the kid they were talking to the kids, and the kid just said that I think they overheard her saying, "I'm starving, starving," and that if the kid is starving, then the kid can't really learn, because if the kid can't focus, if the child is starving. And so that's one of the effects of COVID on the child, and the psyche of the child, and the health of the child.
When we're going to get to a point in our society where we might have to shift some resources from vaccination, masks, and all those things just to catch up on an evaluation of the effect of COVID on the country. It's not just the hundreds of thousands of people who have died, but the hundreds and thousands of people's lives which have been disrupted, and the absolute chaos. It's like a social pandemic that has been created in the families.
I agree.
Right? And there's no quick fix we can give those families, but we cannot ignore them, because 10 years down the road, we're going to see a greater effect negatively of what has happened, this negligence and this adversity that has hit families. And I dare say that even as you and I are talking, you and I are talking here, to those people who are part of the church community, I hope you're listening, and I hope this is motivating you to come up with some ideas. How can you and your church find ways and means to touch people's lives in the community, and not just your own church members? Your church members might be affected, but what about some homes near to your church where those people don't go to church, right? And what a great opportunity that God is giving us to go out there and feed the 5,000. Besides women
and children. That was my Bible study last
and
night.
children. What a great opportunity that Jesus is giving us, and feed some people. You talk about the kid who is saying that she's starving, right? She is probably the voice of 4 or 5 back at home. And so when we said at the beginning that these are exciting times for ministry opportunities. These are exciting times for us to find unorthodox ways of reaching people with the love of Jesus. And as you said earlier, before we start to introduce to them the gospel of Jesus, so we can just show them that there's a group of people up the road who go to that church, that we love you, we care for you, and we're here to help you. We're all in this thing together.
Is that what Jesus said? Let them sit down.
Yes.
Let them sit down, because he was going to work a miracle. That was our Bible study class last night in John 6, where we're studying the book of John, and we were in chapter 6 last night, beginning on that. And we're going to come back to on your assessment, what can we do? But on the other hand, that we have also noticed that there are so many orphans, because both parents for some have died. Some only had one parent, and that parent died, and so the domino effect on that. God help that the grandparents might be still alive, or if their parent are not alive, or grandparent are no immediate family to help, then they got to go into a foster care system. And so I'm thinking of the psyche of that, depending on the age of the child. If the child was able to understand, what was happening, how that impacts the child. Um, Coming back on the other side, in your field of profession, and I don't know how much you're doing that now. I don't know if you still do that on a daily basis, or a weekly basis. I don't know the level of your involvement in that. But what have you heard? And before I say that, I have also heard not only that there are more suicides, but there are more divorces and separation as a result of the COVID impact. And it may have been financial instability, unable to cope, unable to meet needs of the family. And so the psychological effect of that, how it impact families, instead of bringing them together, it drove them apart.
Time would fail us to even begin to dive deeply into that. But that is such a critical issue that you have raised. because the literal face of COVID, what it did, it 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 brought those five members of the family, three kids, mom and dad, and for the whole day they have to be staying at home. We talk about, for some people it's hell working from home because I have to be in the same house with this spouse who I don't really get along with. I can tolerate her or him for 5 hours or 3 hours in the evening when I come home from work. I eat dinner and we go to bed and we repeat the process tomorrow.
Mhm.
But here it is now. I don't have any work to go to. She doesn't have any work to go to. And we are in the same space for so long that we don't get along. I don't really like you. I can't stand being breathing the same air that you're breathing all day. And people grow apart. Some people start to fight. Some people, it's horrendous. And they themselves didn't realize how critical it was until COVID threw them together. And so, yes, families are being affected in so many different ways. The kids are now at home right throughout the day and they see some of the ugliness. They hear some of the ugliness. And then they realize, oh, that mommy and daddy don't really have it together. And it makes them sad. And they feel that they can't do anything about it. My goodness, COVID is cruel. But in a sense, COVID is good because it probably helps families to realize that we were living under a band-aid. And now that the band-aid is removed, the sore is exposed. So we have a lot of work to do. I want to provoke our audience for a bit, and I'm assuming that many of our audience are believers, and particularly for those of us here in the United States. In 2015, a ruling from the US Supreme Court was handed down basically legalizing same-sex marriage. But if you stop and think about it, that ruling, it might have legalized same-sex marriage, but it changed the definition and the face of family in this country forever. Because if there is a marriage, then it is now legally possible for the people in a same-sex marriage to adopt children. And more of that. So as the church, have we caught on to that shift? Or are we still behaving hostile and exclusive to that new dimension of family in the community? Put aside the hostility and the acrimony that we have cultivated over the years and find a way to be inclusive, find a way to also be able to touch the different versions of families that have emerged in the society. Again, I think what a glorious opportunity. Not for us to stand in judgment, not for us to be critical, not for us to isolate and to interact with them. And at the same time, our motive is that we want them to meet Jesus. A Jesus who, when they caught the woman in the sin of adultery, look at what he did. He didn't join the legal perspective and say, let us stone her to death. He didn't go ultra modern and say, oh, lady, oh, what you did, it's your fault that why you made them cut you. No. He came up with a brand new perspective that nobody had ever thought about before. And that woman was able to walk away, and she got a second chance of living.
I'm 100% with you on that. I'm 100% with you on that. And as you say that, that is going to be part of the conversation next week when we have this massive panel when we're going to be talking about ministering like Christ, uh, changing the mindset, and not leaving anyone behind. That is going to be a major, major discussion. And I think as you talk about the exclusivity of our own mentality, do we run from them, isolate them, or do we really find a way to minister to them? And for that to happen, we need to have a mindset change, the change the mentality, change the thought process of how we abandon, how we condemn, on how we minister. And that is going to be a new approach to the mentality that we've had. um and I use a term in the Zoom room the other day about how, in part of my chaplaincy training, one of what we learn is that sometimes you have to ignore your exposed theology and use your operational theology. And are we able to put aside, at least for a moment, the exposed theology, and tap into the operational theology so that we can reach people no matter where they are. And that's the problem that the disciples had with Samaria, because they had no dealing with the Samaritans. You know,
I was
they
thinking
just,
this. I
they
was
had
thinking the
no
same
dealing with them
thing.
Samaritans, right?
I was thinking the same
And so
thing.
Jesus exactly. And Jesus must need go to Samaria because he wanted to show them that you cannot ignore Samaria. As a matter of fact, Bishop, and I'm going to leave you to comment on that. When Jesus told his disciples after, just prior to his ascension, you shall be witnesses when the Holy Ghost is come. You shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem, that is home, both in
And
Judea, that is next door, that in
yes,
Samaria, that is the abundant city,
yes,
before you
yes,
go to the rest of the world, right? So I'm going to leave it to you now to make you.
listen, and I'm tracking with you, man. I'm tracking with you because listen, I, I, about a year ago, I began to see that part of the scriptures in a different light, and I'm fascinated. First of
Mm.
all, that Jesus had the audacity on the day when he was about to leave to say to them, "This gospel."
Hmm. You shall be
That
witness.
you guys have experienced and witnessed for these past, fine. You're going to take it to Judea, fine. But you're going to go to the forbidden territory of Samaria.
Yep.
What? Okay,
Hmm.
let's ignore him. There's no way we're going to go to Samaria. Jesus, that's a piped dream that will never happen. And so they clustered in Jerusalem until the churches in Jerusalem were bursting at the seams and persecution came. And the Bible said in chapter 8 that they had to run, and some of them ran to the forbidden territory in Samaria. I mean, can you imagine how shocked the Samaritans were? Hey, they're not just Jewish people, they are Jewish people who have converted to Christianity. What are you doing down here? Have you
Hmm.
missed your way? And,
Yeah.
and the Bible said that they carried the gospel with them to Samaria.
And I want you to imagine, and I know we are in this discussion, we're talking about, and this is going to be a huge discussion next week, Wednesday night, when I have maybe 9 giants that are going to be on this panel discussion next week. And we're going to
I noticed the panel, I noticed some heavyweights.
some heavy, 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 heavyweights on that panel. And boy, these are some of the issues that we're going to have to tap into. All of these issues. How do we minister like Christ? How do we change the mindset of us who have been so shaped and have been so dogmatic and have been so influenced by our exposed theology that we can't adapt an operational theology. That is not for us. We have to leave that to somebody else. But as you say, even though Jesus went to Samaria, must need to show them the example. They still were sticking to their old principle until they were forced. So
Yes.
so my thinking now, Bishop, is imagine what the mentality of the Samaritans were when they saw those people who had no dealing with them running come to them, maybe out of desperation, out of wanting somewhere to turn, or did they come because they were pushed under duress, or what, so are we waiting until we are driven down the path where we have nowhere to go but to meet and talk with these people? Or do we minister to them? As I said some time ago, to you can't scare them if you want to win them.
Pandemic, persecution, two P's, right? The persecution drove them beyond Jerusalem to go find refuge in Samaria. And that's how the Samaritans, they were able to get a flood of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Look at what the pandemic is doing. The pandemic is like it's like an emotional and a social persecution. It is challenging us. It is driving us out of our comfort zone. And I talk about the new versions of families that are cropping up in the society. Please forget about your prejudices and your biases and so forth, and your previous traditional thought processes, right? And see every new version of family as another opportunity to take Jesus, who we know, to them. So yes, let's go down to the Samaria in our country. Let's go down to the Samaria in our city and take the gospel there. And trust me, the Samaritans, they listened and they got saved.
And sometimes, even out of just curiosity or disbelief, they would say, really,
Yes.
really, and I think there is I think there is a group of people around our churches that have been, that felt that they have no place.
Yes.
They are among the rejects,
Yes.
and so they wouldn't run to us if they need some place to run to. And so the church has not established itself as a city of refuge. It has not established itself as a city of refuge. Uh, it has established itself to a certain extent as a city of reject, of rejects who are rejectors. Rejectors who said, "Oh, no, 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 no." And listen, again, my friends, I'm gonna turn this to Bishop to give us an idea what you think we can do, what's your approach. But I just want to remind you that next week, Wednesday night, I'm gonna see if I can find that ad just to play it somewhere in me. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up and play it, because I'm gonna show you the people that we're gonna be, and I think we were trying to get Bishop Bailey. I think they were running it around, but we run out of space maybe. But next time we this conversation is just beginning. This
Yes.
is just beginning. So I want you to join us next week on this
I
huge
most, I
discussion.
most definitely will. I most definitely will. I'm not jealous about not being on that panel. Listen, they're jealous now because I'm the only one talking to you tonight.
And I'm sure you will join, but I don't mean you as you in person, but I mean
Right,
those
right.
who are watching, because this is going to be a huge discussion. How do
Yes,
we change our mentality, and change our perspective so that we can minister like Christ, so that we can go to Samaria even when the disciples think it was an about like a wrong thing to do. I'm going to give you one example, and I'm sure I'll bring these up next week. Another example of people who reject. There was this woman who was known as a sinner, right? She was just known as a sinner. And if you're known in your community as a sinner, that means it's really bad.
it's bad.
Really bad.
Yes,
You
yes,
know? But she was invited. She wasn't invited, but she came too. She came to this session that Simon set up and invited Jesus in.
yes,
And we are considering him as the holy, righteous, exclusive Christians.
yes,
The host of the of,
yes,
of the feast. We're using him as these separatist Christians who are comfortable among those who we approve. And here is what Simon said. When the woman get close to Jesus and was washing his feet, pouring out her precious oil, and 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 worshiping for the feeling of forgiveness for the sins that she had been so long living in. And here is what Simon said. he questioned whether Jesus was really the Messiah. Because in his mind, if he was really the Messiah, he would not, he would have known this woman's character and wouldn't even allow her to come close to him. And we have a lot of those in our communities, in our churches today, which we must change our mentality in order to minister like Christ. Because there are some Simons who are in the house, and there are some disciples who don't have no deal with the Samaritans.
I hope nobody's told me, but I'm going to ask a question in relation to that. Please don't stone me. What would you do? What would you do instead of that woman who came and dared to touch Jesus? She broke several social norms,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this woman dared to touch Jesus, and Jesus allowed her to not just touch him, but to wash his feet, pour this expensive perfume, dry his feet with her hair.
That's as
Right?
intimate as you get, right?
Oh my goodness, it doesn't get any better than that, right? Okay, so here's my question. What will you do, not to you, but to those who are listening? What will you do? Today's Wednesday, Sunday morning in church. You are sitting down in church, and a known gay person come and sit beside you. A transgender come and sit beside you. Somebody who has been parading in the city as a drag queen come and sit beside you. What would you do if such a person came and sit beside you? I know what Jesus would do.
Amen.
Jesus would pull up even closer and said, "Do you want to share my Bible with me?" Jesus would pull up and say, "Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Jesus. What is your name?" That's what Jesus would do. But many of us, we would look around and see if we can find an alternative seat for ourselves.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
better still, imagine an usher comes up to that person and say, "You have to change seat."
Yeah.
Because you're sitting down beside one of the top givers in our church, and we don't want to drive that person away. God forbid.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
When,
Lord.
when John said, "For God so loved the world," he meant that person sitting down beside you too.
Whew. We have to change our mentality. And
Please.
hang in there, Bishop. And my friends, I'm coming right back. And it's not too late for you to change. I want to play this ad. I want to show you the lineup that we have next week that's going to be on this panel discussion right here on Let's Talk with the Doc. Watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? You cannot afford to miss this timely panel discussion. Changing the mindset, ministering like Christ, leaving none behind. It will be one like no other on Let's Talk with the Doc. Join Bishop Adrian Varlock, Bishop Clayton Martin, Bishop Ishmael Charles, Prophetess Joycelyn Barnett, Bishop Leroy Greenaway, Sister Darlene Carty, Bishop Roy Notice, Bishop Levi Clark, and Bishop Anthony Campbell. Live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. February 2nd, 8 p.m. New York time. Mark your calendar. Don't miss it. It will be unforgettable.
How long will that session be? 4 hours?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see. But boy, am I looking forward to that. I'm gonna be so prepared for that one. I'm gonna have to really pull into the hearts and the minds of these great people that God has blessed with the experience of traveled the world, has ministered to people at all different level and locales and all different circumstances. I can't wait for that. I can't wait, my friends. I hope everybody tell everybody, because this is going to be huge.
You're a genius to be able to put together such a panel. That's crazy to gather such a vast wealth of knowledge, expertise, experience in one forum. Man alive, yeah, that's going to be epic.
Yeah, I'm saying if it was in the secular world, we'll call it a panel of what do you call it, stardoms. Yeah,
Yes.
stardom.
And
On the wall.
celebrities.
Sister, your sister Lindsay, I need at least 5 hours. We'll see how
Yes,
it
you
goes. But maybe it will be part one, and then we'll break for a couple of weeks and come back with part two. But boy, I'm looking forward to that because and this is not really a joke. We're at a crucial point. We're at a very crucial point in the church, in our communities, that if we don't change our mentality, we will not be able to minister to the people around us who are dying desperately. The other point is that Jesus came not to call the righteous, but he comes to call sinners unto repentance. And one can always determine what makes one a sinner. What makes one a sinner? The people born in sin and shaped in iniquity, and the devil have you dragged down the path to do all the things that contrary. And so we are going to have to change our mentality so we can minister to everyone who has a soul and who has a chance of being redeemed.
God, winning the lost, winning the lost is central to Jesus's heart. As you quite rightly say, he did not come to call the righteous. The righteous are already righteous.
Mm-hmm.
There are other sheep which I must go after. That is the center of Jesus's ministry. And what have we done? Over the years, over the decades, we have relegated evangelism to a committee. We have relegated evangelism to a group of people, and we throw a few dollars at them, buy some gospel tracts, go out and distribute tracts once every, and we throw thousands of dollars. We throw thousands of dollars to have convention and conferences for the righteous. We bring them in and we feed them, and all they're doing is getting fatter and fatter and fatter spiritually. And they go back to their various churches, and so little effort is made to win the lost. And I think that if there's any time that Jesus wept, it is now. Weeping to see that we pride ourselves. Look at what the church has become, Doc. We pride ourselves in the size of our congregation. Oh, my church has 2,000. My pastor's a 10,000 member church with 4 satellite churches and so forth. And really what we're doing, we're just recycling and recycling and recycling. How many people are we winning for the kingdom? How many people are we winning? And I mean real people out there, like some of those who have spoken to, and I say this very respectfully, that there are people out there that they've never set foot in a church. There are people out there. I read an article this week about someone who was witnessing to a teenager right here in the United States. And he thought he was smart. He said, rather than start off by talking about Jesus, he was going to talk about the beginning of the human race, Adam and Eve. And he was going on and he said, are you following what I'm saying? Because he hasn't yet talked about Jesus. And the young man said, yes, I'm following what you're saying. But who on earth is Adam? Who on earth is Adam? And the guy who was doing it, he said he felt so bad because he assumed that everybody in the world knew about Adam and Eve. and so you keep saying since this evening, you've said it 1,000 times that we have to change our mindset. We have to change our mindset. We have to even be careful on a Sunday morning telling people to turn to St. John 6. The unchurched person doesn't know what is St. John. And he might be smart enough to look in the table of contents, but by the time he finds St. John at page 225, you've moved on. We have to change our mindset. Don't change the gospel. The gospel is unchangeable.
Changeable.
It is constant. But our method and our attitude has got to adjust to the times.
Our method, our presentation, our attitude, all of those things are factor into how we will be able to touch people. And I said, for all and for all these years, we have scared people, and we have made ourselves an unwelcome location. So they don't come by there because they know it's an unwelcome place. Uh, so the whole mentality has to be changed, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for people to believe that we have changed, because when something has been one thing for long enough, it has become known. It's like in my community, and in almost every community, there's a Home Depot. There's a Home Depot that everybody goes to Home Depot to buy nails and screws and paint and gardening stuff and all of these materials, sheetrock. The mentality of the people is that there is a Home Depot there. And even if the sign is taken down off the Home Depot building, they're going to be coming there to look for things, because it's in the mind that that's where Home Depot is. The day that so if somebody don't want, for example, if they're looking for books on a Barnes and Noble, they're never gonna go into Home Depot. The day that Home Depot becomes Barnes and Noble and people don't know, they're gonna come looking for lumber and all the things, and then they find out that it is no longer Home Depot. My point is, when people become familiar with something, it's going to take time for them to realize that there is a change, and for them to grow into knowing that there's a change. So the church has impacted the world with this negative vibe for a long time, that the church is an unwelcome place for you to come if your lifestyle don't match certain criteria. So we're going to have to reshape that mentality of ourselves, and to help to reshape the mentality of the world, that we have changed our own mentality. So now, instead of being a place that rejects, it's a place that welcomes.
In order to change our mentality, we have to change our attitude. In order to change our attitude, we have to change how we see things. We've got to see things through different lenses. Listen. June, and I'm going to say this fearlessly. June is Gay Pride Month. Some years ago, a church was brought under fire because they made an effort on the Sunday when there was the gay parade in their city. They set up a stall on the road to hand out bottles of water. Bottles of water. But behind every bottle of water that they handed out, Doc, was the love of Jesus. Because that person in the gay parade is not expecting a bottle of water from a stuffy Christian, because he has had bad experiences with Christians. And for a group of Christians, not one little old lady running a project, a group of Christians out there rubbing shoulders with these people and say, I'd like to present you a bottle of water. And maybe on the bottle of water is a label with the name of the church, or with a slogan which says, Jesus loves you. It's now January. If we really want to adjust our mentality, our attitude, start thinking of what can our church do in June to show the love of Jesus to a group of persons who we treat as outcasts, but Jesus say, I love them too. Make a difference. That's what we're here for. That's why Jesus left us. That's why Jesus said, go into it are uncomfortable and unwelcome, but we should still go. We'd easier jump on a plane and go to Africa and want to evangelize those who are whatever we think of Africans as. Well, right here in our cities, in our communities, are some people who have
What
experienced it.
what Daniel Campbell just writes here, that some churches believe that when we welcome some persons, we are compromising. Listen. Uh, let me just state clearly: the church belongs to Christ. The church belongs to Christ. And Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men. I'll open the door, the opportunity for the lost, the vilest of sinner, the most condemned to find hope. And if we become the voice of hope, and the representatives of Christ, the ministry that we have, we need to take it to the world to let them know, in spite of where you are in your life, there is still hope. We don't have the right to judge and to determine, or to predetermine, or to preconceive, and we come to our own conclusion. We have one responsibility, and to present the love of God. Jesus said, and I'm not using these as enemies, but I'm just using this as a point of reference. He said, if your enemy hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him drink. If he's naked, clothe him. And he said, by so doing, you heap coals of fire on his head. The term coals of fire is not that he will burn off his scalp and burn his hair and melt his brain, but it means it will show him that, hey, love covers a multitude of sin.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
We
Amen.
want to clean them up before they get saved.
Yes. And that is impossible.
Yes.
We want them to come clean. They can't come clean. It's
No,
just
no, no.
as I
Yeah.
am, right? Just
Yes.
and back to my sister's thought here, Daniel, where she said, I just wanted to add to that the church is not compromising. It's the mentality of some of us that when you welcome some people into your church, or at least you allow them to sit down to hear the gospel. You allow them to sit down to hear the gospel and to hear that Jesus loves and cares for them, and they too can be saved. There's no compromising in that. There is giving an opportunity for somebody to hear what you have, to hear about what changed you, and how it has impacted your life. And if we don't open our doors to do that, then we've held in a cluster the message of salvation and hope as if it belonged to us and us alone. So there's no compromising, my sister. It, and if that be the case, go back to what we said about Simon and Jesus, and even the woman taken in adultery in the very act, and all of those things. And if there's anybody who has compromised, is the head of the church himself.
Listen, and if that is compromising, I want to compromise.
I would want to compromise.
but I want to share something with us, and I know we're throwing a lot of things at our audience. We started off with COVID, and look where we're at. Paul messed us up in 2 Corinthians 5 when he introduced a concept calling us ambassadors, sent on an assignment from your country to a foreign country. And you are represent the leadership of your country in this foreign country. An ambassador, think about an ambassador from a foreign country coming to United States. The ambassador does not have the right to come to United States and tell Americans how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not what you're there for. You are in America, but you are not an American. What are you here to do? To represent your government, right? Represent your government in a distinguished and an honorable way. Jesus said, you are my ambassadors, reconciling the world unto me, right? And so my message, the message that Jesus has given us as the church, is that don't go into the world and change the world. Go into the world and preach the gospel. Represent me. When they come see of my country and apply for a visa, then we can have that conversation. It occurred to me that as an ambassador, what a powerful, effective service that God has given to us, and we must not mess it up. We cannot go into the country. You are in the world, but we are not of the world, right? And so our job is not to change the world. Our job is to convert the world to accepting Jesus as their Savior. Jesus will do the cleanup.
Amen. 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 I'm with you 100%. And as you talk about the being an ambassador, um, you cannot be an ambassador if you are ignorant of your country
Ooh,
laws, rules, and operation. You can't be an ambassador. You can't be an ambassador of your country if you don't really know what your country stands for. You know,
yes,
if you don't know the laws and and what works and what doesn't work, you cannot
yes,
be an ambassador. And
yes.
I'm afraid as you use that term ambassador, Bishop, I'm afraid that many of us are voices attempting to speak for Christ, but not ambassadors of Christ because we don't really know what Christ would say. Walk around with a tag on you and what would Jesus do? That's not enough to
Yes.
to walk about what would Jesus do. It is important to know what Jesus would have done based on what he has done.
Listen, listen. I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you because you're challenging me as well to to rethink, and revise my own attitude as an ambassador. Right? That I have been given this glorious opportunity. When you think about the word of diplomacy, and when a country chooses you to be an ambassador, that's an honor. That's
Man,
an honor, right? And so forth. And what a demonstration of confidence that your president or your trust you to go to this foreign country, and I'm expecting that because I know that I can depend on you to do a good job. That's what Jesus is saying to us, that he has sent us into this world, and he trusts us. He is expecting us to do a good job based on what he knows of us. But some of us as ambassadors, we mess up, and Jesus has to recall us.
amen.
Come
My
back to
friend,
headquarters.
listen, my friends, I am talking to Bishop Clyde Bailey, and listen, this has gone on, and I think it was a fascinating discussion, and I hope that you enjoyed like I have.
Thoroughly.
And the time has run off so fast, man. Look at the time. We're just about the time has run off, and but it is just such a pleasure to talk to you. But as you talk about, and we're gonna give you the chance to do your wrap up because and I'll just read a little bit of stat here, just because we're kind of pinpointing on COVID, and then I'm gonna give you a chance to do a wrap up because but as you talk about ambassador and you make mention of the word diplomacy, I think I think many of us as ministers and as so-called representatives of Christ, we don't have diplomatic skills. We don't have diplomatic skills. We are kind of one-dimensional, and there's a saying that if the only piece of tool you have is a hammer, you'll treat everything like a nail, and you'll just hit it on the head. Everything will just hit it on the head. Diplomacy. You have to be strategic. You have to be innovative. You have to be patient. You have to understand to change strategy. You have to use different method, different approaches, and so you can weave your way into discovering something or somebody or another country and also help them to discover. So the diplomatic approach to that requires skills, theological depth, compassion, love, understanding the love of Christ, and really caring for the lost. All those things have to be packaged into becoming a diplomat for Christ to be his representative.
Wow. Wow. And so maybe some of us need to go back to diplomat school.
Diplomat school, go get some training.
Yes,
And yeah,
get some training. Yes, because we're doing a bad job. But I just want to, if I could just make this as part of my closing comment. Um, I want to commend those churches. I want to commend those believers who have made adjustments since COVID. Churches that comfort zone to continue the spread of the gospel. Jesus is proud of you. Jesus is pleased with your efforts. Some pastors are uncomfortable speaking into a camera, but they realize that that is how they're going to have to reach people, and they have stretched themselves beyond their comfort zone, and they have done it. And I want to commend them and encourage them to continue to reach for the stars as far as maximizing the technology is concerned. And Jesus will give you the wisdom and the resources that you need as long as you have that fresh mindset. For others who have been doing things to help people in the community and reaching people, not just with the verbiage of the gospel, but with the demonstrative power of the love of Jesus. I want to commend you too. And whatever you're doing, keep on doing it and do more, because Jesus is well pleased with us. And those of you who have not yet adjusted, we have had the privilege to sit down and talk with you and to share some ideas. We're not any experts. We just like to talk. but this evening we have exchanged ideas that probably you might have heard before, or you're hearing for the first time. And I would encourage us to leave from here and and think about it. Think about it. I think Doc is going to be posting this conversation on his social media platforms. Think about it and see how God can lead you to take some of these crazy thoughts that we have been sharing this evening, and how you can apply them in your church, in your community, and win some souls for Jesus using some real creative ways and means, because that's what the gospel calls for the children of God to be creative. Don't change the message.
Mm.
Don't change the message, but your methodology, your attitude, your motivation, your mindset need to be adjusted. So thank you so much, Doc, for having me, man. I tell you, I came here just to have an ordinary conversation, but I'm leaving here. I'm so motivated and recharged by this conversation. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. It was amazing.
Well, listen, man, that is interesting, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming and being able to communicate at the level, and to think in the way that I think I am thinking. I think we have the same kind of mentality, in how we impact our community, and how we can make a difference, and how we can make ourselves welcoming to the lost, and how we can make our church become a city of refuge, as opposed to a place of rejection and isolation and exclusivity. Sitting in our comfort zone, ministering to, preaching to the choir, as they say. Just
Yes.
just come together and just rejoice in the Lord and have a good time in the Lord while others are dying outside. I know we wanted to talk, but I'm gonna give you one more chance to, not one more chance, but I'm gonna give you an opportunity, if you want to take a minute or two, to say, if you were looking at a family right now, you're looking at a family that has been driven apart through COVID, because they're working together and they're spending too much time together. They didn't want to spend all these 8, 12, 16, 24 hours together. They wish that they come in after 6, and by 8 they're gone to bed, and they get up at 5 to go to work again. And so they see less of each other. If you would talk to a family with teenagers, and the stats show that those under 18 years old have been more affected and impacted, how the family is able to to navigate through this time. And I'm not saying a lot. If you sat with a family with, you said, family of 5, there's a teenager and there's an under teen, under 18 and stuff like that. What would you say to a family who feel that they've been driven apart by the COVID because they're spending time together? They're too much in the house. They're not spending time together, but they are forced to be in the house. And because of that, instead of coming together in fellowship, they're being driven apart because they see too much of each other. What would be, from a clinical standpoint, what would you say to help to alleviate some of the pressure on a family that is becoming more and more intense?
If I could borrow an illustration from when there was a time as a family therapist, I did home visits, and I was working with a 6, 7 year old, and I had to visit the home. And one day, I did something that was crazy. I asked his mom. They live near a park, and I asked her if it's okay for me and her son to just go over the park and sit down and talk. I wasn't able to fix the family, but I was able to have a breakthrough with the 6 year old. And sometimes to that person who is listening to you and listen to your question, and they are seeing something, they are seeing whole families being affected and falling apart. You might not be able to help the family, but there's one kid in there. There's a teenage boy in that family. There's a teenage girl in that family who is going through depression. Can you get close to that family and introduce yourself and develop a relationship with that one teenage girl? And it might not work the first time that she has a friend in you. She has a new friend in you. And you might not, you don't have to be a family therapist or psychologist. You're just somebody who is just bubbling over with the love of Jesus. And each time you visit her before you go, you pray. And you ask God just to give you some ideas what to do. And when you leave, you pray for her. And it might take a while, but if you can reach that one teenage girl for Jesus, a young girl who will one day become a wife and a mother, you would have saved some more people down the road, way beyond your own imagination. And so to every one of us, it might not be as clear as the example that Doc gave, but open your eyes. Ask Jesus. No, ask Jesus. Show me an opportunity that I can reach somebody in a creative way. Show me an opportunity that I can do something that hasn't been done by anyone in my community. How I can reach somebody for Jesus. None of the people in Jerusalem conceived of a way to reach Saul with the gospel.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But Jesus set up the perfect opportunity, right? And even when Ananias had to go and give him the message, Ananias was nervous.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? What if this man, when he receives the sight, he turns on me, right? And so forth. But
As soon as I open, I might get that.
yes. But Ananias was crazy enough to listen to God. And Ananias has gone down in history as the man who brought this powerful challenge from God to this new sinner, this new saint. My friends, my brothers and sisters, the days of sitting down and depending on the pastor and the evangelistic team to win the world for Jesus, those days are over. They're never coming back. We are in a new era where every one of us has to see ourselves as fishers of men and women, boys and girls, next generation. Every one of us.
I said it to my congregation, to our people not long ago, that this is the best opportunity for all of us to become ministers, for all of us to become witnesses,
Yes.
because with all of us have the phone, and you might not be able to have a conversation as much, but sometimes it's just a matter of share what you have heard. You know, just share it on in your page, share it with your friends, and you just never know if you spread it long and far enough. You just never know when something will hit a chord, when somebody by happenstance or by divine purpose and God's plan will just cause you to share something and just let it go into something pop up on somebody's phone, even if they were considered to be rejectionists. If if God is working in what you have done, He will cause it to pop up on their phone, give a notification, and they might want to reject it, but something might just speak into their spirit to say, "Yeah, you've been seeing this thing. Why don't you just read this one?" And sometimes it's just what that person might need at the moment. And in heaven, on the record in heaven, you will be on the record in heaven as a contributor to that soul's salvation. You,
Can I just say one thing? One of your listeners, Elaine, I want to commend her. She said she was a member of a group of nurses
right? I
who,
did. I put that out there.
who went to a gay parade, and look at how brilliant she was. Before going, I called my pastor and brethren to pray for me. How powerful that is, right? She didn't know what was going to happen, but she knew if I could have some people back at church praying for me, I'm going out like a crazy woman with these other nurses to take the love of Jesus in
Yes, give me cover. Give
this
me cover.
crazy community. But Elaine made a record of it, and he will honor you, and he honor your courage and honors your faith, and keep it up. Keep it up, Elaine.
Amen. Amen. Again, my friends, I've been talking to Bishop Dr. Clyde Bailey, and I just get to meet this man, and I love talking to him. You know what? I'm sure Bishop somewhere down the line, and I think you maybe you find this to be interesting. So maybe we will talk again. Who knows? You know, because there's so many things to talk about. There's so many things to talk about as the world changes around us, and as you enter into ministry and you're making your discovery into a new dimension of your life, and then somebody is coming into it, and somebody has been in it. So I'm saying, okay, I'm making room for you to come in, you know. And so you know, but I enjoy talking to you, and I'm looking forward for us to have another conversation at some time when the Lord allows it. Just
Thank you.
don't be a stranger, you know, and don't be a stranger, and don't only wait for me to call on you. You know,
It's,
if
it's
something,
going to be difficult to be a stranger after tonight.
ah, all right. If something is burning in your heart, man, and you want to share it, give me a buzz and say, man, I'd love to talk to you on your program about this. And also, if you know of
Thank you.
somebody, if you
Thank you very much.
know somebody who can be a major contributor to the bigger community, and you know, can lay something down, I'll be willing to take a look into what that person has to offer, and that person also could be on Let's Talk with the Doc. So the door is open. The door is open. I know you're a man of intelligence, and you can do your own assessment, and you said you know what somebody has to offer that can make a difference if they get a chance to talk to me on this program. But thank you for joining me again, my friends. Listen, if
No
you still
problem.
hear this, you can still can share this, because there's a lot that we talked about, for these 2 hours. Two
Yes.
hours we've been here talking, and we talk about a lot that we didn't plan to talk about, but the Lord knows it was necessary.
It
All
was.
right, so it was necessary. So I will see you next time, and again next week Wednesday night.
Yes.
I'm gonna play this again for my friends who maybe I'm gonna play this again. This is the lineup next week Wednesday night, and we're gonna be talking about how the change in the mentality, the mindset, how to minister like Christ, not leaving anyone behind. Watch this lineup. Watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? You cannot afford to miss this timely panel discussion. Changing the mindset, ministering like Christ, leaving none behind. It will be one like no other. on Let's Talk with the Doc. Join Bishop Adrian Varlock, Bishop Clayton Martin, Bishop Ishmael Charles, Prophetess Joycelyn Barnett, Bishop Leroy Greenaway, Sister Darlene Carty, Bishop Roy Notice, Bishop Levi Clark, and Bishop Anthony Campbell. Live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. February 2nd, 8 p.m. New York time. Mark your calendar. Don't miss it. It will be unforgettable.
Congratulations. That's a coup for pulling those guys together, those guys and those ladies together. That's a coup. I really commend you.
That's a cool. Man, listen, man. I am excited. I am so excited about it. I can't wait. I can't wait. Cause boy, is that gonna be big. It's not gonna be big. And Bishop Charles is really pushing. He's pushing it with all that he has in him. He's pushing it. I want to get everybody. I hope that we can have 1,000 people joining us on that live. I hope that we have 1,000 people around the continent joining us on that live, because that is going to be one of the most relevant discussion in our time, one of the most relevant discussion in our time, to have the experience of those men who have served in so many different capacities around the world, and how they have seen people from uh, all ethnic background, all status and standing in life. I can't wait for their input. It's gonna be unforgettable, as you have heard. Until next time, it is Let's Talk with the Hanging there, Bishop. I'll chat with you and just thank you for joining me again, my friends. And by the way, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's a good time to do it. If you're not following me on Facebook, it's a good time to do it. On Twitter, and by the way, I am also on TikTok, ORB Ministries. I'm using all that God gives me to take ministries. So check me out on TikTok, ORB Ministries. I'm there. All right. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay tuned. Blessings.
God bless you. Thank
Well, thank you for checking in on ORB Ministries. I trust that you will share with your friends, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, and stay tuned, because you never know what's next or who will join the conversation.